Chasing whatever it is I'm facing, I can't walk away. There's so much left to say. Hey, our story never has to end. Eternal, I'm alive again.
Hello and welcome to week 5 of Foxii Fighters, our final week of the round robin phase of the event. This is a very high stakes week, as at the end of it, the robots in 7th and 8th place in each group will be eliminated from the event. Those robots towards the bottom of the group will really need to prove themselves tonight in what could be their final fights of the event.
Beginning this week, of course, for the Ruby group is a battle for 6th place between robots Cerberus and Avalanche. Both robots sit at 2 and 3, with Cerberus on 27 points and Avalanche on 22 points. I'd have to say so far, in terms of performance, both of these robots have done decent, I'd say, in the competition, but I think Avalanche having the better record, with Cerberus poor driving that has often left their fragile machine destroyed at the hands of many of our more successful competitors. But we'll be talking more about that later on the pre-show.
And talk about it we will, especially the Emerald group. Look at the bottom half of the group and see just how close it is. Only 8 points separate 5th and 8th, which could mean a surprise in who moves on. Taking a look at Gosling and Akira, they're both on 2 wins and 3 losses, but with how Gosling's losses have gone, it stands below Akira in the standings. Moving on to Skynet and Tough as Nails, those two are only 3 points apart in positions 6 and 7. All of these signs lead to a very close group and some highly contested matchups.
As for the Sapphire group, we spoke last week about how Howler doesn't really have much of a chance to make it through the round robin phase, and unfortunately, I still think that is true. However, there's another battle for 6th place between Leviathan and AJ Allmanflinger. At 30 points and a 2 and 4 record, you may think that Leviathan, our current 6th place robot, has a better chance of going through. However, I personally think that AJ Allmanflinger will steal that all-important 6th place, as with 26 points and a 2 and 3 record, AJ still has 2 fights to prove itself compared to Leviathan's 1. And with only a 4-point difference between them, AJ can easily make up that difference in the fights this week.
If we take a look at the Topaz group, it looks like we've almost got a foregone conclusion. There's a difference of 12 whole points between 6th and 7th place, Quake and Two-Headed Death Penguin, and our bottom 2 bots both sit with a record of 1 and 4. Those bottom 2 bots, Two-Headed Death Penguin, who I've already mentioned, and Baratuda, will be fighting not only each other this week, but also Lemon, so they've both got 2 opportunities to shine, but seeing either bot move up the rankings this week is almost impossible.
And here is our schedule for the week. And we certainly have some very interesting matches here. And one of those, I think, will be our very first match of the night. Game Over versus Silly Goose. This is a fairly hard one to call for me, as both robots have been pretty inconsistent throughout the season so far. They've had their moments, Silly Goose's Uta shot on Avalanche, and Game Over almost defeating Neola, to name a couple. But these 2 bots have remained just below the middle of the group for almost the entire event. How do you think these 2 match up against each other?
Well, I have to agree, both of these robots, I'd say, are quite even in terms of their performance. Both of these robots are on a 2 and 4 record, with those 2 matches where they have won being quite exciting to watch and a great showing from either of these machines. If you have to get my opinion on who I think is going to win, though, I think I have to give it to Silly Goose, mainly just down to driver experience. Seffi's been around a lot more than the driver of Game Over, and I think that experience will really pay off against the powerful vert of Game Over.
I do have to agree with you. Both of these bots have their strengths and weaknesses. The core strength of Goose, for instance, is its speed and unpredictableness. It'll be a real test for Game Over, which is much more controlled. Considering this, I have to agree and go with Silly Goose as well.
Next, we'll be putting two of the event's big horizontals against each other, Terabyte and Avalanche, but the two robots almost couldn't be further apart in terms of record. Terabyte finds itself towards the top of the group, while Avalanche finds itself buried at the deep end. One of these robots has got a lot to fight for this week. Avalanche will be looking for a strong result to help in its squabble for 6th place.
Terabyte's very impressive 4-1 record sees it sitting pretty securely in 3rd place. And with the only loss being to Neola's pesky heavy-duty armor, as for Avalanche, it's one of the only spinners yet to win a fight by knockout, which doesn't speak well to the potency of that massive bar spinner it has. Tonight, we will need to see something special out of Avalanche, or it'll be all over for them. I, however, will be going with Terabyte.
I can't blame you for going with Terabyte, it's also my choice for this fight. Terabyte's shell not only packs a punch, but can take them too. We've seen just how durable the shell is and how hard it can hit in earlier fights, and I just don't see Avalanche having a defense for it.
On to fight 3 of the Ruby group, we have Burnout versus Counterpoint. Burnout is still yet to get a win in this group so far, and is the only bot not to have one. It's really lacking so far, even though it has such a beautiful design, and I don't think it's going to be able to pick up one win in this match either, since it's up against Counterpoint, a robot that has been a force to be reckoned with in this group so far. With its dual weapon setup, it's been perfect for every occasion and for every opponent. I don't think Burnout's going to find its footing, but we could still be surprised even now.
I feel like I've said this every week. I really like Burnout, but the numbers are against it here. Counterpoint's got as many wins as Burnout has losses. I would dearly love to see it get that win, because no robot deserves to go home without tasting victory, but is this the fight? I doubt it. The flippers seemed vulnerable lately, so I can see Counterpoint opting for the spinner for maximum potential.
Counterpoint has this one. I don't really see a world where Burnout gets this victory. I think its only hope is to go for an early Uta before the damage racks up. But with how good Counterpoint has been so far, it's very unlikely.
The next fight on the card is an important one for each competitor, as we've got Avalanche taking on Cerberus. Just why is this important? Well, take a look at the standings. Cerberus is at 6th place, just inside the bubble to move forward, whilst Avalanche is in 7th, looking to take that place. This match is win or go home, and both of these bots need to give it their all and prove that they have what it takes if they want to move on to the next round.
I've got word from the pits that we'll be seeing Cerberus in quite a different form today. After that loss to Counterpoint earlier in the season, Nicky must have realised that a machine like his own has a serious weakness to horizontal spinners. So he's been out and got himself an absolutely massive front wedge to hopefully keep Avalanche away from the more vulnerable parts of his machine. So if Nicky can keep that wedge pointed, I think it's a pretty easy win for him.
While this wedge sounds like it might be more of a defensive modification, it's a change which Nicky felt was necessary to fight a robot like Avalanche. But it's exactly the kind of modification other robots have made and been successful with, and I see no reason why it shouldn't be successful here.
And our next fight could actually be a very close one. We'll see the Clusterbot of Neola face off against the Flipper Burnout. Now, why do I think this fight could be close? Well, we saw last week that Neola's lighter weight can be quite the disadvantage if hit in the wrong place. And we've seen that Burnout's Flipper, on the occasion where it has flipped its opponent, has actually got some really decent flipping power. I could see Burnout getting an Uta if it can time a flip, but even then, it will have to do it twice to win. Neola almost certainly has this fight in the bag, but there's a slim chance that Burnout could win this one.
Even saying that though, Foxii, if Burnout were to somehow win this fight against pretty much the group runner, it is still eliminated, which is a darn shame, As we've also mentioned before, Burnout is a fantastic machine and it looks gorgeous, but clearly other machines have performed better in this group and it has been outclassed.
I have to imagine that in spite of Burnout's position, Banana is still going to put on a show and give Neola a good fight. We've seen Neola win before in good fashion, and I think we're going to see it again. Neola is my pick for the win.
Now, I don't know if Nicky watches Foxii Fighters as well as compete in it, but if he does, he'll have heard Mystic say last week in his interview that his next opponent, Terabyte, may be weak to overhead attacks. If Nicky was watching last week, then that surely must bring some confidence to hear that his opponent might be a little concerned about facing him, especially as Cerberus is in 6th place and looking for a win to ensure it progresses into the group phase.
Yes, I believe Nicky will be feeling the pressure in this match since they need this win to stay in, holding on to that 6th place spot. Hopefully they can try and keep it together, since Cerberus is a complex and fragile machine to drive, especially coming up against Terabyte. They need to be extra careful and extra cautious, because one strong hit from that powerful full body spinner could spell curtains for them.
I mentioned earlier just how tough Terabyte is, and when we consider Cerberus' circumstances, even before this match, it all lines up to be a steep hill to climb. Terabyte has a disadvantage coming into this match, but to me it doesn't change the winner, that being Terabyte. And with that, we move from one intense group to another. Let's take a look at the Emerald group for this week.
And to start the Emerald group, we'll have Mundo with its 5 wins and 1 loss face Skynet with its 1 win and 5 losses. How's that for symmetry? Across those 5 victories, Mundo's flipper has proved to be powerful and more than capable of Utas. Another may be on the cards here. Of course, Skynet's concern going into the fight will likely be its own weapon, the spinner. After the issues it had against Truncator, the hope will be that the spinner is back to being fully functional to take on Mundo.
This is honestly a fight I'm really looking forward to. I've been saying since the start that Skynet is a bot we've been sleeping on, and I'm hoping that this will be the fight to prove it. Mundo's flat sides are a great place for Skynet to wedge under and bring down that powerful spinner. I honestly think Skynet's got this one.
On the other hand, Skynet's record has been rather rough in this group, and I'd say despite it performing quite well, it has come up against stronger competitors, and I think Mundo will be quite overwhelming. They've got 2 weapons to deal with there, and if Skynet is flipped over, then Mundo can certainly combo and manipulate this vulnerable robot.
Well, the hits keep coming with our next fight, which sees Serpent taking on Akira. Let's take a moment to talk about Akira, because it is at the very bottom of the group standings. Just to have a chance of moving forward, it needs to win both of its fights this week, and in convincing fashion. We've seen how well armored Serpent is and how defensive it can be inside the arena, so just how big of a challenge could this be for Akira?
There's been a notable turnaround in performance and luck with Akira since week 1. It only seemed like yesterday that we were discussing how unfortunate it was to become beached so often, but as the weeks have passed, it's been looking stronger and stronger. However, we're in week 5 now. Did this turnaround come too late? Does Akira still have time to claw this back?
My concern with this fight is that I just don't see Akira's luck continuing against something this strong. Serpent has been a dominant machine throughout the round robin so far, and I see that streak continuing. It's gotta be Serpent for me.
Next up in the Emerald group, we have Soundwave versus Truncator. This will be a great fight, I think, as it will be a testament to see how strong that Killdozer configuration is on Truncator. Soundwave Spinner is quite powerful, but as we have seen before against Mundo, if it does end up getting upended, it becomes absolutely vulnerable to multiple attacks and potentially knocked out of the competition in one swift move.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of variables that come into this fight. It's certainly a possibility that Soundwave could be hindered by its Self-Writer. However, we also have to think about Truncator's flaws in this match. If it so chooses to have the Killdozer armor, then it does have some extra coating, but we've seen just how fragile the rest of the robot is. If it can land the right hit, I see Soundwave taking an upset win.
Both these robots have impressed me at times, but also really disappointed me with certain performances, so it almost seems like a lottery as to which Truncator will get for this fight and which Soundwave will get. But even if we get the worst of both robots here, my feeling is that it'll be Soundwave who triumphs tonight.
Our next fight is between 2 bots in the bottom half of the group, Gosling and Akira. Now, the last time we saw Gosling fight a horizontal spinner, it didn't exactly go in its favor. However, Akira hits much lower than Soundwave, so I don't think we'll see another linkage snipe here. Gosling is a very durable machine, so I think we'll see it stand up well enough to Akira, but I'm not sure it has the offensive capability to be able to fight back. We saw it defeat Truncator pretty convincingly, but that was more luck than anything. I think Akira has this one, but I wouldn't be shocked if Gosling wins.
I do have to agree there, Foxy. While Gosling has proven to be a durable machine when against the right competitor, I don't think it has the consistency to face up against Akira. Mind you, Akira has had a very rough record in this competition, but when it has performed well. I do believe that luck is in the favour of Akira, hopefully, as John has said earlier, so fingers crossed, and hopefully not double-crossed.
Given the limited area to clamp down on Akira, it's right to think that Gosling will struggle here. As Foxy said, the lower hit zone may bode well for Gosling's linkage, but think about the wedge in the wheels. If Akira can work its way through those, then it is guaranteed to take the win.
Soundwave will return to the arena to face Tough as Nails, a robot which is almost the definition of defensive design. Soundwave, meanwhile, is very much an offensive, aggressive robot with a weapon all of its own, whereas Tough as Nails will likely need to turn to the arena to really threaten Soundwave and deal substantial damage to its opponent. Maybe Tough as Nails can keep hounding and harassing Soundwave, but Akira demonstrated that it can sustain damage, and that's where Soundwave has the upper hand.
The lack of offense that Tough as Nails possesses can mean trouble in a lot of fights, especially against a bot like Soundwave. The strategy here for Tough as Nails is to not let Soundwave get a moment to itself. Go straight into grabbing and don't stop. That way, there's not going to be enough time for Soundwave's weapon to spin up. If Tan can do that, and I think it can, then it'll have the win secured.
They'll have to do that constantly in this match, because if it even lets Soundwave go for at least a few seconds, it's going to be facing a very deadly spinner. I think that while it does have a chance, Soundwave's overall design and I think wedging capability will be enough to actually counter and maybe even push Tough as Nails around.
The final fight in the Emerald group will be Gosling versus Serpent. This will honestly be quite an interesting fight to see play out. Gosling's front wedge is deceptively low to the ground, but if Serpent gets round to the sides and flips, it'll take a long time for Gosling to get back to its wheels. We've not really seen Serpent take much damage throughout the group so far, so we don't really know how well it will hold up to Gosling's Crusher, but I can't imagine it will fall apart anytime soon. I'm backing Serpent here.
A win here for Gosling would be great, but a win for Serpent gives it a strong chance at taking the group. We've already seen that Gosling is unable to escape from the raised platform in its fight against Soundwave, so Serpent has a few options here, including, of course, the Uta zones. I expect Serpent to offer Gosling's Crusher too many opportunities. I expect Serpent to win.
I have to agree with you both here. I think that Serpent is a monumental competitor for Gosling to go up against, especially considering its performance in the competition so far. Serpent is just too low and I think too agile for Gosling to really get any kind of good crush in. So I think the fight is going to be over quicker than we realise. And now after that, let's move on to the Sapphire group.
We sure will, and it's a big way to kick off the Sapphire group, as Abyss and Electro Motivation will lock horns in a big-time battle. These two have been top contenders in this group and have consistently stayed at the top of the tables, and a win for either will place them comfortably in the top end of the standings. Electro has been on a far more destructive tear than Abyss, but even with that, it's still lower in the standings. While these two are pretty much guaranteed to move on, both bots want bragging rights. If I had to guess though, I'm putting my money on Electro Motivation.
This is going to be a very good match, I think. I don't see how this could be anything other than a 3-minute long back and forth fight. Electro Motivation's shape makes it quite hard for Abyss to get a good grab on, and I can't exactly see the Egg Beater hitting Abyss hard enough to throw it out. Both bots will be jumping at any opportunity they can get. I'm not sure who to back, but it'll be a fantastic fight regardless.
I agree that these two robots are going to give us a good show. They're where they are in the group standings for a reason. but I do think there'll be more opportunities to play the winning move for Electromotivation. And take it all the way to a judge's decision and there'll be a strong case for either robot, but assuming it's decided in the arena, I reckon it's Electromotivation's fight.
Now on to fight 2 of the Sapphire group, AJ Allmanflinger versus Hu Wang. Both of these robots have done quite well in the group so far, though the last time AJ fought an Egg Beater, it didn't end well, considering Electromotivation ripped into the undercarriage of AJ and tore out its battery. A spectacular sight to see, but probably not for Rob. AJ needs to win tonight to regain its 6th place, otherwise it is up for elimination. Hopefully, you have better luck this time, Rob, but I'm interested to know what your plan is against the powerful Hu Wang.
Well, as you said, AJ hasn't had a great record with Egg Beaters. The loss to Electro felt to me like a driver error on my end, not to take away from Botbuster's performance. Sometimes, though, you have to take what some would call a drastic measure. It's been teased before, it was considered before, but now seems like the right time to bring out the pole. After testing and watching other fights, I really have no idea how well it's gonna go. But I'm at the cutting point without much to lose. I'm willing to take a chance, and if it doesn't work out, at least it looked funny.
This is going to be a very fun fight. We've wanted to see the poll since the pilot episode, and finally, it's time! I'll be cheering AJ on from the commentary booth. I pray the strategy works for you.
Moving on, Leviathan's last fight against a Flipper didn't go brilliantly for it, so it might not be too happy to hear that our next fight puts it against Stardust, another Flipper. But that previous fight was against AJ, and while the weapon's the same, the two robots are very different in shape, so we might not see the same outcome. And we know the Leviathan can deal damage, so a robot which appears as fragile as Stardust might not want to take too many of those hits.
Yes, while Stardust has some explosive power, it is quite fragile, and it will need to really be up in Leviathan's grill in order to survive and make up the most without their weapon. They can't run away with and charge up now against Leviathan, because if they do, Leviathan's spinner, which of course is naturally heavier than most in the competition, is going to absolutely rip through them as if a knife through butter.
As you said, Red, this is all about good timing and constantly being on the attack. Leviathan has to aim only for the rear and sides, while Stardust has a much easier job. If Stardust can do everything mostly right, then there's no doubt in my mind that it can beat Leviathan.
The next two bots we'll see in the arena are Jokester and Huo Wang. A pair of spinners with similar paths during the season so far. Both bots had a rocky start, but have been looking pretty strong in the past couple of weeks. Huo Wang is nearing the top of the group, and a couple of strong wins this week could see it snipe that top spot away from Abyss. Jokester, however, enters the week in 5th, and I don't see it moving out of that spot in all honesty. Huo's spinner is simply too powerful, and Jokester has shown to be somewhat fragile. I've got Huo down for this one.
Personally for me, I feel like I've got Jokester down on this one. Jokester is a notoriously low robot in this competition, and their forks have yet to be bested once in this entire event, even against Electromotivation, who has a pretty low wedge, mind you, has been wedged underneath by Jokester. I think they do lack in the damage department, even with the punching spinner, but I think their controlling ability and their aggressive power will be enough to overwhelm Hu Wang and get them the victory.
I'll still give this to Hu Wang. As much as I like the look of Jokester, I have to agree with what Foxii said earlier. It just looks fragile. Both robots are very competent in the arena, but I've seen just a little bit too much vulnerability from Jokester to not give this to Hu.
Moving on to the penultimate match of the group, we're getting Stardust against Howler. This is the last match in the stage for both of these, and possibly the last of the show for Hobo, Drew, and Howler. And that's a sad thing to realise. Howler is a good-looking bot, and in past events has done well, but that success just hasn't translated into Foxii fighters. There's still some hope to be had. Howler did well against another flipper in AJ Allmanflinger, so an upset could be possible if the stars align.
It is sad to see, but I don't really see any lifetime where Howler wins this fight. I love the machine, but this is where its season ends. We'll be saying goodbye to Howler at the end of the week unless an absolute miracle happens. My only hope is that it can put up a good fight here and receive some upgrades in the off-season to perform as well as it looks like it should.
Yes, I have to agree. It'll be a shame to see Howler go. It's such a beautiful machine, and it does look like it can do something, but as Foxii Fighters has proven, looks are not everything.
And our final fight in the Sapphire group, Jokester and AJ Ormanflinger returning to the arena. The two robots have different goals tonight. Jokester wants to make the top 4. AJ wants to make it through, and that means getting the win. I think it can. It might not come easily, but I see AJ doing it, and I'll be interested to see what config Rob goes with to tackle Jokester.
At the moment, I'm not all too sure about config choices. It'll have to be something that doesn't have gaps that Jokester's force can take advantage of. The low forks on Jokester are quite dangerous, as I've seen from matches beforehand, but the rest of the bot is basically just a square target. That certainly helps out in terms of confidence, but looking how things stand, it's middle of the road for me. So long as those front forks are avoided, there's definitely a chance at getting Jokester out of the arena.
Now, as much as I love AJ, I gotta bet against it here. It could pull off a shock Uta, but Jokester is just so terrifyingly low to the ground, and I just don't see AJ getting underneath. And now we move on to the final set of fights in the round-robin phase of the event. The Topaz group.
Yeah, so what a fantastic fight we've got up first in the Topaz group, as we see Quake face up against Xiaoxi Long. Xiaoxi Long has been, I think, the more successful out of the two, with Quake being quite, I suppose, mixed in terms of how well it's performed, more in part due to their front wedge. I think their best bet to facing up against Xiaoxi Long in this match may be just going for the vert. Though, the hammer might be great just to try and snipe potentially the motor of the vert and take it out, as Xiaoxi Long's entire setup, of course, is built around that vertical spinner. I'm not sure who I think is going to win here, but I think that Xiao's probably going to pull through, since while Quake is durable in the front, I don't think it can follow through in terms of damage.
If we take a look back at the weapons, Quake's wedge, which you mentioned, Red, has been an interesting subject. Its shape has been pushing targets to the side, away from the weapon, almost like it's refusing to bite into those tasty targets on the opponents. Now, it doesn't look like that's been addressed, so Xiaoxi Long almost has the upper hand before the fight even starts. We've seen struggles from Xiao though, but if it struggles again, Quake will want to take advantage with whichever weapon it opts for.
Xiao absolutely takes the cake when it comes to weapon power against Quake, but that's not quite enough to say in confidence that it has the win. I'd have to say that Quake needs to take a defensive route in order to win. If it goes with the axe and gets some lucky shots, then that'll go a long way, but we have to get there to begin with. Considering Quake's past luck, I think I'll have to contradict myself and say Xiao will pick up the win.
Fight 2 of the Topaz group sees one of the best bots in the field face off against what we can quite safely say is one of the worst. Lemon, the bright yellow shell spinner, will meet Two-Headed Death Penguin. I don't really think I need to talk about who's winning this fight. We all know how it'll end. This is Lemon's fight to lose.
And there is maybe one way Lemon can lose. Think about Death Penguin's wings. I'm thinking about them right now, and if you ask me, they've been a big inconvenience for them. But if, for once, they can be used to get Lemon stuck, then this match could maybe go from a knockout loss to a loss from the judge's decision.
I'm glad we're all in agreement that Lemon's going to win then, yes. While Two-Headed Death Penguin has scored some surprise wins in this bracket so far, against myself, I don't see it really doing much. Those wings are flimsy, and that chassis even more so. I think it can try and do as much as it can to Lemon, but I think Lemon is going to make him sour.
And now, two of the top bots in the Topaz group, Wave Runner versus Super Esports. And Wave Runner has a decision to make. Try pontoons or full wedge? I like the look of the pontoons for this, but Esports is a tricky customer to deal with, unless it gets beached, as we've seen happen already. Wave Runner has been a dominant force in the Topaz group, currently leading the way in the standings, so I wouldn't blame Foxii for being a little nervous about this one.
This is a fight I've been wanting since week 1. Yes, Wave Runner is a scary machine, but so is Super Esports. And after 4 weeks of issues with the bot, the drive in weeks 1 and 4, and the drums in week 3, I finally got the bot firing on all cylinders. And I'm pretty confident that with a couple of good hits on the side, Wave Runner will be starting to fall apart. I'm not going to hold back this fight, and by the end of it, Wave Runner will be a pile of parts in the arena.
Very bold prediction, but you know what? I like it. For Wave Runner to win, it ideally has to get esports on top of the lifter and place it on the shelf or the corner pockets. That's a difficult thing to do when there's 2 drums on both sides of the robot. Wave Runner will be sacrificing those front wedges all match long in order to just try making that move. As much as I like Wave Runner, it's going to take some big hits in this fight. For me, esports takes the win.
On to Fight 4 of the Topaz group, and can we really call it a competitive match now at this point, since really this is a fight for 7th place between Baratuda and Two-Headed Death Penguin. Baratuda just needs to get some kind of knockout against Two-Headed in order to not be last place, while Two-Headed Death Penguin needs to last the judge's decision. I don't think Two-Headed really has the knockout power to take out Baratuda, but Baratuda, I think, may have the power, the strength, at least against Two-Headed, to get that win. I don't really know who to put my faith in, really, in this match, though I guess I have to go with the spinner Baratuda.
While it wouldn't be spectacular, there is a not too unrealistic chance that Two-Headed Death Penguin gets a KO here. Remember, Baratuda can't self-right. What if Two-Headed Death Penguin gets a lucky deflection and flips it over? It's a stretch, I admit, but it's almost equally a stretch to expect massive damage here. Will Baratuda stay on its wheels and in the fight long enough to deal the damage that it needs? I'm honestly not sure what to expect here, but I'm definitely not expecting carnage.
This is probably going to be the worst fight of the night. But I could see Two-Headed getting a knockout here, which is not what I thought I'd find myself saying in week 5. Either way, both of these bots are out at the end of the week, so it doesn't matter too much to me.
Well, from the bottom of the table to the top, let's look at our next fight, Wave Runner versus Demon Spirit. Not only are these two at the top of the standings, they're also at the top of the list of control bots. We've seen Demon Spirit have some unlucky encounters in battle, but it's still doing well for itself. In this fight, it needs to avoid said unlucky encounters and go all out to beat Wave Runner. Both of them are battling for ground clearance in this match, and they'll be locked together going over all sorts of arena hazards, making them a pivotal part in this fight. If I had to pick a winner, I'd go with Demon Spirit. The flipper lies much lower to the ground than Wave Runner's, so if it can get underneath, then it can flip it far better.
Both Wave Runner and Demon Spirit play a very similar game when it comes to Foxii fighters. Both of them rely on good control, good aggression, and pretty much good armor to take on their opponents, almost utilizing the power and weight of an opponent against them, against their own selves by becoming almost like moving bricks, full body hammers, if you will, knocking out spinners through their own through the rebound of a spinner, rather than utilizing a very powerful weapon. I have to say, out of these two robots here, that while Demon Spirit is definitely a plucky and strong machine, Wave Runner is up near the top for a reason, and I think they're going to snatch a victory here.
But does being at the top of the standings bring about complacency? While there have been some mistakes and frankly bizarre moments in Demon Spirit's previous appearances, it's had strong showings in between those. And Rob makes a good case for it against Wave Runner. Yes, Wave Runner leads the way, but Demon Spirit's been charging behind.
And our closing fight for the round-robin phase of Foxii Fighters is a battle between two of the most different horizontal spinners in the field. Baratuda and Lemon. Lemon has been a dominant force, tearing through bot after bot, while Baratuda hasn't really dealt the most damage out of everyone. The unorthodox angle it hits at may prove to be problematic for Lemon, but I feel like Baratuda will end up destroyed before it gets a chance.
Yes, while I've come up against many a dicey competitor in this group so far, I actually think I'm a bit concerned about Baratuda. Baratuda's off-angle spinner is, I think, pretty much a decent angle to strike where I don't really want it to, since I have I have a smaller protective outer ring on the side to kind of hopefully absorb most spinner impacts. Regardless, though, my best bet is to try and knock out the sides and get those wheels.
This is a curious matchup, as we've talked about, but considering the records of each bot, speaking statistically, Lemon will most likely take the win here, but it won't come out of the arena unscathed. Speaking of the arena, there's bots in there ready to fight, so we're sending it down there now.
First fight of the night here at Foxii Fighters in the red square, Silly Goose in the blue square. Game over. Both robots are somewhere near the bottom for the Ruby group and are hoping to climb up here today in this match.
Yes, and this is both robots' last fights in the group, so they need to put on a good show here to prove that they deserve to be in that next round.
Ball and Silly Goose lifting over, game over there with their own robot. You're not utilising the lifter there with very clever manoeuvrability.
And Game Over's disc enabling it to self-right. Having that large diameter, that high torque, it lets it get itself back onto the wheels, even if it doesn't have any speed in it whatsoever. Very useful feature.
Oh! Poor driving there from Silly Goose has exposed that back wheel and has let Game Over come in to strike it there. It is reeling a bit as we see it driving around, spinning in circles, and Game Over has struck that back wheel twice, and you can already see that the traction of that wheel, and there's the another wheel gone!
Silly Goose down to 3 wheels in the first minute of the match. And look, if you look at the beak there at the front, down to 2 wheels!
Yeah, those 2 back wheels were looking heavily
And
damaged.
down
And the
to
beak is
just a
gone.
flat plate.
Oh dear, I don't know what's happening here in terms of the in terms of driving skill, but so far Silly Goose has been poorly driven, I would say, as it's left Game Over a lot of chances to strike the exposed areas of this machine.
Game Over getting caught up by the ramrods, but Silly Goose, without that front lip, is just not able to capitalize, unfortunately.
It's going to have to rely on aggression there, and a good push there, and
Oh, a
pushing
very
it
good
over.
push onto the shelf.
Can Game Over get back over? Can it?
Yes, it can. It's
Yes,
down.
it can. Oh, that was a good run there from Silly Goose. That's going to look good in the cards, but right after that driving, it's going to need to do something a bit more spectacular since its control has been quite poor.
Ooh, good pop there, and there goes the
Oh,
plow.
no! Oh no, oh, it's not looking good for Silly Goose so far. It's now much lighter and it's going to be popped up even higher now by the powerful blade of Game Over. This has been a good showing from the Vert so far in the Ruby group. It's been rocky earlier, but today it is Game Over right now for Silly
and
Goose.
another good flick there, and unfortunately I think we know the result of this fight at this point. It's just whether Game Over is going to be able to get that knockout, or if it's just going to be a judge's decision. I think ideally Game Over wants the knockout to get those few extra points, potentially get it up into the top 4.
Oh, there's another wheel!
wheel!
Oh dear, yeah, I don't think we're going to see much more control out of this machine.
Yeah,
There
that's
is
it for
not
Silly
much
Goose,
more.
I think.
Oh, but he's still going in. He wants to take it to the judges. He wants to bring him in. Little wheelless, weaponless. It is over for Silly Goose, I'm afraid.
Yeah, Silly Goose is very badly hurt. But still just considered mobile enough, and this fight goes to our judges. However, to no one's surprise, Game Over has been awarded the win in its final fight on a 9-4 decision. Good job to it. I hope to see it have a bit more success in the group brackets next week. And our second match will see 2 horizontal spinners meet in the arena. Avalanche in the red square, Terabyte in the blue square. Avalanche not spinning up right away, Terabyte doing so, and looks to be up to full speed now.
Yes, Avalanche starting upside down in this match, which I think might be the more clever strategy. It's probably aiming to try and hit the shell rather than the weapon, and hopefully have the blade itself take less damage from Terabyte strikes.
I do think that is a good plan to avoid those weapon-to-weapon contacts. However, considering Avalanche is designed to be an undercutter, does this leave it a bit vulnerable? Because I can't imagine that chassis has a massive amount of armor.
No, I don't imagine so. I think the side pontoons probably have, I want to say, less weight than the inside overall. Oh dear!
Oh,
the
Terabyte
arena has
upside
swept up.
down!
The flipper knocking Terabyte over and putting it into the corner. This is an ample time for Avalanche to strike. Oh!
Avalanche gets a very good hit in there just as Terabyte self-right, but up to speed again now is the shell getting a good hit on the main body there.
Yeah, right now I'm kind of noticing the match here. I think Avalanche's upside down strategy is playing a lot more in its favour. I think it's got a better reach out of the two.
It does seem to be getting that first contact most of the time. However, when Terabyte does hit, it does seem to be getting the harder hits. So it's just going to be a case of will Terabyte's shell break first, or will Avalanche's body break first?
It all depends. It's just a matter of what piece falls off first. We have yet to see any sort of...
Ooh, the
real
floor
meaningful
flipper
damage.
again.
That floor flipper has been quite unkind to Terabyte so far, and that shell
Ooh.
is looking really cracked there, looking at the camera.
Yes, as our camera got a little bit close to Terabyte there, we definitely saw that that shell is going to break off at any moment. And there it goes! Oh!
Fed to Avalanche by the arena from the ramrods there.
And now Terabyte is completely exposed with that shell acting as its weapon and its armor. What can Terabyte do now? It can lose its pole, that's what it can do.
But it can push around as it's doing a little bit there. I mean, right now, I'd say that it's somewhat lower than the blade. It's just a matter of if it can get any kind of traction or pushing power against it, but I don't quite know. It's definitely lighter now because I think all the weight's gone in the shell.
It doesn't look like it's able to push, and it is missing a wheel as well at this point. But I think this is a done deal. Avalanche is just pushing it around, chipping away at that body.
Yeah, that's the thing when you're a full body spinner. As soon as you lose that spinner, you also lose your body. There's not really much else you can do.
The floor flipper for a third and a fourth time towards the end of the match. And I think this is going to be Avalanche's pretty easily.
Very good strategy there from Avalanche. Very much successful in this match so far as Terabyte deshelled at last.
And our judges have awarded this to Avalanche on a 10-2 decision. Terabyte, unfortunately, just could not get an effective hit for almost the entire match. Well played to Avalanche.
On to fight 3 of the Ruby group. In the red square, Burnout. In the blue square, Counterpoint. Counterpoint having a much easier time than Burnout in the Ruby group so far.
Yes, Burnout is currently at 0-5 with its last 2 fights being in this week, and Counterpoint, on the contrary, is 5-1, with this being its last match of the round robin phase.
And I have to say that Counterpoint has been thoroughly impressive so far with a dual weapon setup. It's been prepared for every occasion, but not then, as the flipper comes up and knocks it down.
We're only 3 fights in, but it seems our arena wants to be part of the action this week. It's been very aggressive so far.
It's a flipping frenzy so far, as Burnout's gotten a few good tosses in for Counterpoint. I don't know. I have some hope for Burnout to try and pull out something impressive. I mean, it's there, but it's not been getting the wins.
What I've seemed to notice about Burnout is it always has a very strong first minute or first half of the fight, but it just seems to get so much weaker as fights go on, and it needs that extra bit of durability to really become one of the top machines, I think, because it definitely has potential.
I think the Achilles heel here is probably the flipper, because we've seen the flipper being broken off so many times, and once it's broken off, all it takes is just a good flip or toss, which can happen more often than not in Foxii fighters.
Yes, it can. We've seen it with Stardust. We saw it in AJ in week 1 when it ooted Leviathan. And from our arena once again.
Like,
now,
the arena is not your friend.
It definitely is not. Now, you may have noticed something about Counterpoint during the start of this fight, and what it's doing right now is it's not keeping that spinner on the entire time. And my best guess as to why it does this is that it definitely has more control of the robot when that spinner is not on. And when you're against a bot like Burnout that has the potential to Uta you in one hit, that control can be everything.
Yes, I think it's also used at times to help free itself there, as it did with the ramrods.
Yes,
and
definitely.
potentially it's more used as a surgical tool, where it puts its opponent into a poor position and then comes around and swipes with the blade. Like Counterpoint is just built to have several ways you can use it here. It's a very versatile machine.
Yeah, there's very little area on Counterpoint that you can attack where you won't be met with a weapon. It's got that lifter at the front, it's got that undercutter at the back, and because of that undercutter's length, it does go to the sides very slightly as well.
And really, so far, we've been gushing a lot about Counterpoint here instead of focusing too much on the match, because right now there are pieces everywhere, and it's all come from really Burnout. Burnout still doing its best there. I think it's really trying, but
I'd say Burnout has been focusing on the mini-bot a little bit too much this match as well. We've seen it just ignore the main part of Counterpoint for quite a while.
Wow, yeah, and that was the match, yeah.
That was a really odd match, because I can't really say that much happened.
No, I wasn't really blown away. I mean, it's an interesting one. We'll have to see what the judges say.
Well, our judges have given a verdict, and in a 11-2 landslide, it's gone to Counterpoint.
Yeah, no surprise there.
And our next match of the Ruby group sees Avalanche once again entering the arena upside down to face a very different looking Cerberus. This is the wedge that we mentioned in the pre-show, and wow, is it no joke.
It is massive. I mean, honestly, where was this when it was facing against Neola? Why did they have to substitute a plank of wood? Maybe it was just still coming out from the workshop here, but hopefully it will do something against Avalanche, and I think it has so far. It's
got Avalanche. It's pinned against the spikes. Oh, the saw's coming down, doing a bit of damage to that weak side on Avalanche there as well. Yeah,
very good cut there. Very good cut. Cerberus just needs to stay on Avalanche and make sure he doesn't spin up, which I think he's doing right now, pushing it up onto the shelf there. The saw's coming down up against the spinner there. I don't imagine it's going to do much damage to the spinner, since it's probably one of the most densest part of the robot, but it's a good pin.
Yes, we are going to need to see them separate, which they have done. Avalanche finally getting some speed in that blade. However, with that wedge still being completely unharmed, you cannot imagine... Oh, the saw blade arm getting cut off a bit.
Yes, and that's probably for the benefit as well for Avalanche, and that's why it wouldn't have done that, I think, if it was the wrong way round. I mean, since it's now like upside down, it's able to kind of deflect almost upwards and maybe strike those arms.
Oh, good shot on the wheel pod there. Avalanche definitely seems to be swerving around a lot more to avoid that wedge. And as we've seen there by the parts on the floor, it's doing quite a good job. The drum's holding Cerberus up, but it has escaped with those articulating wheel pods, as usual.
It was a surprisingly good push there as well. It was pretty good from Avalanche earlier, putting it up onto the rollers there, but Cerberus now back in, harassing that blade.
We've said it every week, Avalanche, for something with no wedge whatsoever, pushes so well.
Yeah, I'm not sure what kind of torques he put into the wheels there, but that's a good pin against the wall. The saw's come down, missing.
Avalanche kind of using the blade to almost hook onto that wedge and spin out the way.
But caught again and pushed up onto the shelf! And can it escape?
Will this be the end for Avalanche? This is its last match here in the round robin phase, and I don't think it has the power in that weapon to shoot itself over. And it's got itself stuck!
Oh dear!
And eliminated with 30 seconds left.
Fantastic driving from Cerberus there, good use of the arena.
And with this being the match between 6th and 7th place going into this group, has that sealed Avalanche's fate?
The penultimate match of the Ruby group, we see Neola facing against Burnout. A stark difference between these two robots in terms of record, since one is sitting at the very top and the other the very bottom.
Yes, Neola is another 5-1 machine in the Ruby group, and Burnout, after its earlier loss, is now at 0-6. This is its last hope to get a win. But as I said in the pre-show, Neola's half the way. If Burnout does get the flips we've seen, Neola is going to fly.
It just needs to get some good driving in though. The other cluster seems to be sort of playing attentively, which we have seen a few times here with Neo. There are definitely strategies going on behind the scenes to gauge out the opponent and decide what is best right now.
Yes, the two Neola drivers, I would love to hear what they are saying to each other during this match, because it seems very much the horizontal is attacking and that flamethrower is sitting back. I'm almost wondering if it's having trouble at all, because it doesn't look like it's moving very controlled, does it?
No, I have to agree. The flamethrower doesn't seem to that control. I mean, oh, there was a decent attack there. Maybe it's gonna. No, it's kind of frozen again. Yeah, I don't know. They might be having some control issues. This might reflect badly on them in the cards if it goes to the judges.
However, we've seen that spinners of Neola able to deal enough damage that it won't go to the judges, and if we are correct about the flamethrower not properly working, but it's behind the drum!
And there it goes, poor control there, leaving it exposed and tossing it into the drum. I don't think it's going to get out from there.
No, it's properly hooked underneath now. That drums, they do not reverse, they are designed to catch things and keep them behind them. And it's done it there.
As you mentioned earlier, Foxy, a good flip on one of these lighter models will get rid of him, but this spinner has been tearing apart Burnout so far, and Burnout's trying its best to try and get itself...
The horizontal being very cheeky there, sitting underneath and trying to just inch itself around a little bit more to get that hit. Oh, the flipper gone one more time.
All it needs now is to tip over Burnout, and Burnout is history. Will Burnout go away from this competition with any kind of victory? Yeah, well, I kind of want to see it win now. I don't want it going home empty-handed.
Oh, there goes more of that side. I've got to give it credit to that horizontal. It has picked its hits. With it being half the weight, that spinner cannot be as powerful as something like Terabyte or Avalanche or Akira. But it's doing the same level of damage because it's hitting those same spots over and over and over.
It just wears them down, and again, like, it just grinds away. I mean, at this point, it's like, never underestimate a cluster, because they may be half your weight, but they can still do a lot in the right sort of circumstance, and Burnout is now stuck there. Can it get free?
Burnout was ruled immobile there. It could not shake itself free without the use of that flipper. Meaning, unfortunately, Burnout goes home with an 0-7 record.
Oh, what a shame, Elite. What a shame.
And our final fight in the Ruby part of our round robin phase is Cerberus versus Terabyte. Cerberus once again equipped with that massive wedge. What can Terabyte do to it? Oh. Oh no, it's moving. Oh, I thought it killed it in one hit out the gate there. I was a bit worried.
Yeah, I mean, Cerberus, like, all it really has to do is just keep driving forward and just keep holding on to Terabyte. But Terabyte, it needs to kind of, I think, try and flank around and strike the more fragile sides of Cerberus. Because as we've seen before, the side areas of Cerberus are quite, I'd say, like, easy to break off, especially when it comes to spinners.
Oh, that's a good catch there, getting the saws into play on top of that shell.
Don't know if I saw contact, though.
I don't know if those arms... Yeah, I don't know if the arms go quite low enough to properly hit it.
But otherwise, good push. That's going to look great on the cards. That's what you need here at Foxii 5.
Oh, one of our ramrods stuck in the gap between the wheel pod and the chassis there.
Oh, I see that. A perfect lift there. That was interesting. That was good. But Terabyte not able to capitalise, but...
Well, good hit there. Good hit there. And Cerberus on our wall spikes, but it's hard to beach something when it can rotate most of its body 360 degrees.
It is such a clever design here, but it is, like I said, it is quite fragile. But I think that wedge is making up for that, really. Yeah. Getting rid of that crusher head has made, I say, Cerberus more simple. Though it is a less Cerberus-y, if you don't mind me saying.
Yeah, it is a little bit less Cerberus-y. It doesn't have quite the same amount of personality, but... We see the head against other things, but when it comes to these big spinners, you need that armor, so I think it's a worthy sacrifice. Oh, trying to use it as a lifter there and missing.
and then flipped over again. Oh, Terabyte is being bullied by the arena today.
First against Avalanche about 4 times, and now the arena's getting it against Cerberus too. Poor Terabyte.
Yeah, Terabyte on the run here, but it's spun up once more.
Ooh,
Striking the wedge.
couple of taps. Oh, there goes
And
the
wedge is
wedge!
gone! That's not good there for Cerberus, because now all those soft parts are exposed. That's going to look great for damage there in the cards. But I think if Cerberus survives to the judges, it's going to be a very good case.
Ooh,
and it's
good hit there.
Yeah. I think the wedge was most of its weight, and that just got sent there. Oh, not sure
tripping
what it caught
over.
there. I think it caught itself.
Oh,
and the wheel is gone.
picked up by the drums. It's locked behind.
But can it still? Can it get?
Oh!
No! Oh, no! The drum has ripped apart the saws, and it's smacked again. Oh no!
I don't think it's getting free. Counted out with 5 to go. How unlucky for Cerberus's last match.
All in the final, like I'd say, few seconds as well. In the final minute, it all in just a few short moments. Your entire win, your entire streak could be history.
Welcome back to Foxii Fighters. We just saw our final set of round robin fights in the Ruby group, and they were certainly a very interesting set. The first one we saw was Silly Goose versus Game Over, and it showed us just how important it is to have good control of your bot in the arena. We said that in the pre-show, Game Over is a slower and easier to control machine than Silly Goose, and this fight showed that having the greater D of control can really help out in a tense match like that one.
Silly Goose is an interesting robot in battles like this because that chassis is clearly very durable, but the plough, its main means of attack, has been heavily damaged or broken off entirely in almost every fight so far. What remains to be seen is the final position of these two robots in the standings after this particular win for Game Over.
Moving on to Fight 2, this was Terabyte versus Avalanche, and what a surprise it was to see Terabyte get de-shelled. That's the first time we've seen it happen in this competition, and by surprise, the cause was Avalanche's bar. Nice to see that it finally showed off some of the power that it has, even going so far as picking up the win. This may be too little too late for Avalanche, but in a way, it's better late than never.
Yes, and to finally show off the effectiveness of that undercutter. All it needed to do really is just turn itself upside down. I believe John, earlier in Foxii Fighters, I think during the pilot episode, said that sometimes an undercutter can catch the floor, and it's quite likely for it to do so, especially when it comes to, I suppose, later on in the match, when pieces start flying everywhere and spinners are more likely to catch onto the debris. All in all, though, it's great to see Avalanche finally come through and show off its stuff, but as Rob said, might be too little too late.
The third fight we saw was Burnout and Counterpoint. In a match where Burnout spent the majority of the time chasing Urchin, the mini-bot. While it did get a couple of good flips on Counterpoint, it once again just didn't seem to hold up to the spinner shots, and for the most part was struggling to get underneath Counterpoint. We've said it so many times now, but this is the end of the road for Burnout.
Is it a good idea to leave your weapon deactivated for most of a battle? Perhaps it was here. Counterpoint opted to keep the weapon off for large portions of this match, possibly to give it a little more control against Burnout. And we saw Little Urchin once again in this fight. It didn't explode. Yet another victory for Counterpoint. We'll have to wait and see if it was enough to claim first place.
And coming off of that, Fight 4 of this group saw Avalanche jump back into action up against Cerberus. And I immediately have to talk about just how well Cerberus's wedge held up against Avalanche. It did really well against the spinner and managed to last the entire fight, even with all of the arena hazards up against it as well. Not only were the two bots in the battle showing some hard hits, but the arena hazards got in there too and dealt quite a bit of damage.
Yes, that victory against Avalanche certainly has given Cerberus a very good chance of claiming that 6th place spot and staying in. Removing the Crusher and moving on to a wedge was a great way of reducing the amount of things the driver has to focus on in order to have Cerberus be effective and give an extra bit of defense to an already fragile design. We probably should have seen this wedge a lot earlier, especially against Neola.
Fight 5, Neola versus Burnout. And it seems that what I said during the pre-show was somewhat correct. Neola did lose half, but I don't really think it made that much of a difference, considering the flamethrower part was not really driving that well during the match regardless. The horizontal spinner, however, it may be small, but it sure has a lot of power. The disc left Burnout disassembled yet again, and as that's its last fight, it left it flipperless and winless.
What a sad day this is. While Burnout has had a stronger showing this week, just as Foxy said, it remains winless, the only robot that has gone winless this season. It's a great indicator of the strength of this event's field that 31 of the 32 robots competing have managed to best their opponent at least once.
Well, up next we look to Cerberus against Terabyte, and this here was a surprise for me. Cerberus did incredibly well driving defensively with the aforementioned modifications, but for me this fight came down to driver error. Cerberus just let Terabyte spin up too many times, and that was the downfall for Nicky's bot. Great fight here between the two, but if Cerberus was quicker on the buzzer, it maybe would have stood with a better chance. Looking towards Terabyte though, this was another KO win, and it could very well push it up to being ranked first in this group.
Once more, this match proves just how effective Terabyte's weapon is, and Terabyte, I have to say, is a testament to the full-body spinner design. Despite this, however, it doesn't really seem to get much bite in as other spinners do, and I think it would benefit much more from that if its tooth was just a bit more angled in and a bit more catchy to get the most slam and slash out of its weapon. And now from the Ruby group, let's move on to see how the Emerald groups did.
And our first fight of the Emerald group is Mundo in the red square against Skynet in the blue square. Now, Red, I know we have very different opinions on the way we think this fight is going to go, because I'm very much in Skynet's corner, and I don't think you are you?
No, I mean, Skynet very much, as I'd say, has been, I mean, it's been an underdog competitor so far, but I think Mundo has been a very solid machine in their group, as they have been, they've gotten some very clean knockouts so far, as opposed to Skynet, who I think only recently has been getting pretty lucky.
I do have to agree there. It's had one good win against Serpent, and the rest of the time just not really. But I think the thing about Mundo is, it's not the most powerful flipper, it's not got the best wedge, but it's good at everything.
Yeah, and as we've seen that now, it's utilising that power to put that Skynet on the shelf. That was, it's been on top so far, utilising that pivot flipper very effectively in this match, as Skynet has been bouncing around the arena.
Ooh, that could have been a lineup for an Uto, but there's a good pin by Skynet, and that is what it needs to get some real damage in.
Yeah, let's see if it's going to go in for a second.
We'll bring it down twice. It's going to need to release soon. It's got a couple seconds left. It needs to back off now. Ooh, Skynet. Ooh, getting one more hit in, but then backs off. We'll check the footage on that to make sure it wasn't too long of a pin, but there's another really good one right away.
Yeah, this is Mundo doesn't. You don't want to waste that gas. I recommend utilizing the axe maybe to start wiggling free, because you're just.
It's firing and panicking to try and free itself almost.
It's sitting there and letting itself take it right now, as I think that central chassis is now receiving damage, and it's rolled over there. That flipper has been really active so far today.
Oh, is that gas or battery? I don't see it on fire. I think that's the gas. Mundo's weapons are down.
Is that the gas or is that the battery? I'm not sure.
That's the gas. It doesn't look to have gone up in flames.
Oh my word, what another huge strike. And
Mundo's done. Without that gas, it can't fire the axe.
Oh dear. That's all it really took. Mundo caught in a few angles, and the hammer saw living up to expectations, using his weapons so well, and just worked down Mundo. Fantastic,
and Skynet beating the leader of the group. I'm happy.
I can't believe it. Good on you, Skynet. On to fight 2 of the Emerald group. We have once more 2 different robots, stark contrast to each other in their record, though I'd say Akira has been the more unlucky out of the 2.
Akira definitely has potential, but has just got so unlucky in its fights. Oh no,
Oh,
not
no,
already.
no. It can't be over already.
And it is
it's
Serpent just
no,
nudging it up.
word.
That's
Can it try and get
brutal.
free? Using the spinner, can it use this? Yes! No!
Oh,
No!
it's still beached.
Oh my word, it's happened again! The arena takes another victim and Akira loses by being beached! Again!
Akira. 7 fights you have in the round robin phase. And so far it's been beached in 4 of them. And now our 3rd fight in the Emerald group. Soundwave opting for its alternate bar again in the red square, and Truncator with its Killdozer in the blue. Interesting idea from Soundwave there.
Yeah, we've seen Truncator use that Killdozer configuration a lot more, and it's been very helpful so far as it's tanked Soundwave and has pinned it into the corner.
Soundwave, are you okay? Can you self-right with that bar?
I mean, it can't really self-right with itself right. It's very weak, and so far Truncator has just been pinning it in the corner and harassing it so far for this first minute. It's entirely its match so far.
Definitely. Oh, flicks itself over there, but is caught on the drums and hoisted onto our raised platform. And I don't think it's going to be getting down from there, unfortunately. Oh, it's got itself stuck on the lip.
Oh no, that's it. I think this has been a very clean win here for Truncator. Very methodical, very powerful, almost reminiscent of Mundo's victory against Soundwave as well. Fantastic win.
I think those lifters and flippers are just where Soundwave has its weakness. It's got that self-righter, but it's just that little bit too slow for it to really have a chance at most of the time.
Fight 4 of the Emerald group. We have in the red square the unlucky Akira, and in the blue square the durable bird that is Gosling. Both these robots sitting near the bottom of the group, one of which just down to its poor luck.
Yes, this is Akira's last match in the round robin phase. And if it keeps going like this, Gosling biting through that weapon support and picking it up. Very impressive from our Goose early on here.
Fantastic crush, trying to push it over to the shelf and put it up onto it!
Oh no, not again.
You don't want to get stuck there, Akira. We have seen it almost get off last time. Oh no! Is it? Oh!
It's got free this time. Now, if you look at Akira there, we've mentioned it a couple of times, but that flamethrower being on the beak of Gosling is so lethal. Because that can crush down and then burn those internals, and I think we saw it do that right at the start of this match.
Yeah, those parts are now discoloured, but let's not dissuade and look away from Akira here, as so far it's utilising its spinning and swiping tactic to rip apart Gosling right now.
Yes, it's definitely finding its way back into the match here, taking off those side armors of Gosling, but Gosling is a really durable machine, even against Soundwave when it lost its head, lost its wings, ended up stood up right behind the drums. It still worked, so I don't actually expect to see a knockout here.
Yeah, I mean, really, I only expect to see a knockout if Akira gets himself stuck. There's Flipper going again.
We saw it in week 2, Akira getting stuck because of our Flipper. Let's hope it doesn't happen again.
Oh, and there goes that front wedge. Akira tearing it apart. I think Akira's finally finding its footing here against Gosling. Gosling needs to kind of just try and use that crusher however way it can.
Yeah, Gosling doesn't have any forward support to bite down into now, so even if it does get a good crush, it's not going to be anywhere near as effective.
And let's see now, both robots just, I think, trying to line up their next shot to try and do something here.
Akira chipping away at that front more and more. I think it's just trying to get that front linkage of Gosling like we saw Soundwave do.
Or driving Gosling, getting itself stuck on the drum.
Ooh, good hit there, both bots deflecting. Nice backflip Gosling, but I don't think now's the time.
Gosling taking flight, using those wings. Akira putting his one, another nice swipe there. I love seeing that. I love seeing that pin into swipe move, and Akira does it so well.
That almost like tail whip motion that we see where it uses that wedge to run its opponents into a wall, get that little bit of damage from the spikes, and then bring that spin around like we're about to see here. Just like that. A perfect example right there. And as we enter our last 5 seconds, Gosling is not looking happy.
Yeah, and tipped over at the end there, reeling back from that final shot. Akira looking burnt, but Gosling looking broken.
Gosling definitely had the edge early on in this match, but it seemed like once Akira got down off the shelf, Gosling almost let its guard down a little bit. And the match goes to Akira on an 8-4 decision. So well done to it for picking up a win here in its last match. And now our 5th match of the Emerald Group this week sees the heavy defense in Tough as Nails fight against the heavy offense in Soundwave. These two bots could not be any different in the way that they work. It is crazy to see the difference in designs in these two, and I'm interested in seeing which one will come out on top.
Yeah, so far we're seeing Tough as Nails get a nice little grab there, staying on Soundwave. It's what you want to do against a horizontal.
Getting a good slam into the drums
he's
and flipping
flipped
it
it
over. Soundwave self-righting though.
Very interesting flip there, and Soundwave self-righting though. Tough as Nails getting a nice little grab in there, but I can't say that it's gotten a really good grip since that last grasp so far, really.
It hasn't really allowed Soundwave to spin up, but it hasn't been capitalizing on that either. At this point in time, this has kind of just been a fight between two blunt objects. But it's got a good grab there. Yes, it's getting some control.
Now it's got to push it into the house.
Ooh, just slipped out. And now flipper firing. It likes to do that.
We need a flipper counter this episode.
Oh, definitely. Ooh, good push there under our hammer, getting one shot, getting another.
Yes,
very good grab there.
Yeah,
Soundwave able to spin up, but it can't get the hit.
Oh, and I think Soundwave got one of its front prongs that it utilizes to not drag along the floor there. Tough as Nails.
Ooh, Tough as Nails getting another good grab, and grabbing that top part there where the self-righter and the weapon motor
that's
is.
Not ideal, though. That's not ideal. That could have been a very interesting Uta there from Soundwave, but no. Tough as Nails staying on Soundwave, keeping it on him as we go down towards our final minute, and
another shot from the hammer.
Yeah, I would have to say Tough as Nails has been very strong in this competition. Oh dear!
It's lost a large section of the claw, but I think it can still just about grab. But it doesn't have the power to push with it anymore. Soundwave dominating now.
Yeah, and I've really felt when it comes to the crushes that Soundwave has been able to outdrive and outmaneuver really Tough as Nails. I mean, it's got some great wedgelets and it's got surprisingly good pushing power and need be. As you can see, it's pushing back there against Tough as Nails. Tough as Nails still trying to grasp and get something. There we go.
Tough as Nails definitely winning on the control here. It's been so aggressive, so controlling. Soundwave has had so few opportunities to spin up, but it's had just enough to deal that damage to Tough as Nails.
I think it's been decently aggressive enough. Oh, and it's been flipped over again!
Self-righting from the power of the weapon, though, not the self-righter.
But
Tough as Nails is hurting.
That doesn't look good for the cards there.
Oh no, it's still mobile enough, but it's not going to be a good ending impression for our judges.
I can only imagine. I think Soundwave managed to get a last-minute snipe at the wheel at the end there, and that's going to look really good for him on the cards.
Despite that, however, the judges have given this to Tough as Nails on an 8-4 decision. I'm not fully sure I agree with this, but I can definitely see the case for both bots here.
And on to the last fight of the Emerald Group, we see Gosling against Serpent. Serpent having a fantastic run in the group, and Gosling having a rough record, though it had a decent go earlier today.
I think a win here, which it looks like it might get, nearly getting the Uta there, will accelerate Serpent to the top of the group, or at minimum second place. It and Mundo seem to be the strongest two bots in this group.
Serpent has been such a slippery contender here, and it's so low I find it its design itself, it makes, I think, a lot of weapons kind of useless, really, since a lot of weapons are centered much higher than what Serpent's actually built at.
It's a very low design, it's a very compact design. So I think that explains why we haven't really seen it take any damage in the competition so far. It's pretty much finished every match the way it started, and is still keeping up that record, as Gosling hasn't had a single grab all match.
Yeah, it's been a very slippery contender there, even as it goes to try and push it in there. Like, I don't know if Serpent's been greasing up their, robot in the pits, but there's no solid, grab or grasp that any robot can really get. Oh, that could have been curtains had Serpent succeeded. But the floor flipper, I think, has done more flipping than Serpent so far.
I think it's done more flipping than anything else combined so far this week, Redman. Our arena is being very aggressive this week, and I'm all for it.
Goodness me. I mean, we've seen the arena many times decide the fate of the battle, and you really just have to adapt when it comes to the environment.
It's almost like it's listening to us talk about it and activating even more, as we saw it stop Serpent from getting a charge there by putting the flipper right in its face.
I hope you didn't accidentally put any AI into the flipper there. I don't want to wake up in the morning and see the flipper tossing me out of bed.
I mean, it would be an interesting way to wake up of a morning.
Yeah, I prefer over an unblock.
Gosling almost finding out that, oh my god,
Serpent!
Serpent!
Oh my word!
Don't drive over them, they're clearly marked for a reason!
It's a flipper frenzy today, and it's not Serpent that's doing the flipping.
Oh, this has been a very quiet last minute of the match, with both bots spending more time positioning than actually getting a flip or a crush in. Gosling getting a sneaky bit of fire in, Serpent misfiring.
Yes, though I'd say, really, I think Serpent has just about been the, the better controller and aggressor here. There's a nice little flip.
Ooh, good flip. Gosling using those wings to almost stabilize itself upon landing.
I mean, that is what the wings are for, to glide and keep stable in the air. But,
yes, Gosling, that's the drum, not Serpent. That's not where you need to go.
Yeah, there's not really much going on here. It's just a bunch of wedging of the two.
And a flip to finish off the match! What a good finale! Can Gosling self-right?
Yeah,
yes, it can.
As expected. No robot really was sustained some major damage there, but I think judging it's going to be a bit more difficult.
And our judges have awarded this win to Serpent on a 9-4 score, leaving it on a 5-2 record. And that's a pretty convincing win. Well done to Serpent.
Oh, hello there. I didn't see you come in. Welcome back to the studio, where we'll be discussing the Emerald Group battles. The first of those saw Mundo face Skynet, and this battle may have surprised Mundo. Mundo took too much time trying to position itself for the best possible flips, trying to get the all-important Uta, no doubt, instead of staying on top of Skynet and taking opportunities when they came. And the result of that was that Skynet was given chance to show what it can really do, dealing proper damage to Mundo for really the first time in the event.
You see, this is what I was talking about when I said that Skynet genuinely does have potential. It's a very scary machine when it gets hit in the right place. And as we saw here, with Skynet hitting Mundo's gas bottle, leaving it weaponless. I think this win saved Skynet's season, and we'll be seeing it move into the group brackets next week.
On to Serpent versus Akira. And this fight was another clear-cut victory for Serpent, dominating that entire match and delivering a quick blow and a nasty knockout to Akira, further continuing the beaching streak that poor Garlic and Akira have been feeling this entire season. Serpent is surely, I think, at this point, clearly going through to the next match. And Akira, hopefully you do better next time.
As you said there, this fight must have been a big blow for the Akira team. There were slithers of a comeback for the bot, but with a loss like this, those chances may very well be over. Unless, of course, a miracle can happen. As it stands, though, this is crunch time for everyone here, and unfortunately for Akira, it seems like they're not going to get a chance to recover.
Next we saw Soundwave face Truncator, and the fight was almost over as quickly as I'll finish talking about it. Truncator simply didn't give Soundwave time to get going in this fight, and Soundwave found itself joining Akira up on the shelf and out of this match.
I think the main problem I've identified here is that Soundwave's other bar simply doesn't carry enough energy to get a good hit compared to the asymmetrical bar. Yes, you can argue that Soundwave needs that bar to hit the shorter robots, but I think against something like Truncator, the best option was to just use the normal bar.
On to Gosling versus Akira now, and this is a step up from Akira's last match, landing that sure victory against Gosling in the judge's decision. I have to say though, it did need a knockout really to get through to the round robin phase, as a judge's decision won't be enough points to cut it, despite that victory. However, I think this really is a testament to just how durable Gosling is. This bird has clearly been fed with the right seeds, because this thing can take a hit.
Even despite that, the main question coming out of this fight, of course that isn't about Akira, is regarding Gosling's future here. This was another loss which puts it even more at risk of elimination. The one saving grace though is that Tough as Nails is behind them by a slight margin. Gosling and its team needs to really pray that they've done enough here and before to barely scrape through to the next round.
That robot that you mentioned as being behind Gosling in the standings, Tough as Nails, for our penultimate fight of the group, we saw Soundwave returning to the arena to fight Tough as Nails, and what a showing it was from Tough as Nails. A control bot controlling an almost perfect match, giving that spinner of Soundwave very little opportunity to spin up. And without that spinner to play with, Soundwave was always going to have a hard time with it.
The difference in the Soundwave we saw in the last 2 weeks compared to the one seen in the first 3 is night and day. While the first 3 weeks secured Soundwave enough points to comfortably make it into the group brackets, if Soundwave doesn't turn it around next week, it'll almost certainly be eliminated. It's safe for now, but how much longer will it last for?
And on to the last fight of the Emerald Group, we see Gosling versus Serpent, with Gosling once more lasting to the judge's decision. Though in stark contrast to Akira, I think it was more likely to survive since it was fighting against a flipper. Gosling once more racks up another loss, and I think at this point, has it really got anything left to give in the tank, because those losses have racked up.
As you've touched on there, Serpent's flipping power is good, but also, as we've seen in this fight, it's not great. While it did plenty of flipping and got the win in the end, it didn't quite get the big flip to Gosling, sending it onto the shelf or out of the arena. Still though, the positives far outweigh the negatives. It didn't even let Gosling get a bite in this fight. And with that, that's the Emerald Group done for this week. The arena is locked and we've got 2 competitors ready to go in the Sapphire Group, so let's get on with it.
First fight of the night in the Sapphire Group, in the red square Electro Motivation, in the blue square Abyss. Abyss have been, I say, on top really for the first, few weeks of the group, but recently it's starting to feel the burn.
Yes, Abyss was at the top of the leaderboard for weeks 1 and 2, Electro Motivation taking over in week 3, and then Abyss reclaiming that title in week 4. So this could be a battle to see who will stay at the top.
Yes, and Electro Motivation so far has been positioning itself right. I think it's been getting underneath more than Abyss. That wedge is very low and very interesting, I have to say. I don't think we've seen this yet.
No, this is our first time seeing Electro Motivation's alternate wedge setup, where it's got those 6 almost like little pods out the front that are designed to basically harass forks, because if one of them doesn't get under, another one of them surely will. And it seems to be working so far here against Abyss.
Yes, I've not really seen much good driving there from Abyss. Aside from now, that's a very good lift there, good pin, but not much else coming from there. Another good push, getting underneath the wedge at last, but
it seems the very angled design at the top and back and the sides of Electro Motivation is just making it quite hard for Abyss to get a good grab on.
Yes, and I think I've mentioned before in the competition, but Electro Motivation has been... Oh, there's the flipper again!
That floor flipper is being such a nuisance this week, but Electro Motivation self-righting pretty efficiently with that back panel, and getting that weapon spun right back up ready for the next attack.
Yeah, I think it's at top speed right now. Abyss does not want to get hit by that. It needs to do so. Oh! And it struck something there. I think it struck a much more durable part, since we're not really seeing much, I suppose, critical damage on either competitor so far, though I'm not expecting to see much critical damage on Electro Motivation against Abyss. Oh!
And, It needs to back up before we can count it, which it is now done.
Stuck in the
Abyss
arena.
wiggling
Oh, no.
itself free.
You don't want to lose here on getting pinned on the arena wall. Not like Akira.
Oh no, can it break free? Yes!
Just about.
Just! An escape on the last second. Wow.
But that, even still though, getting free, it's still got a lot to do, really, coming down to the final 30 seconds. Oh my word, what is this?
I think what happened there is Abyss bit down on the egg beater and just got lifted round as it still had some degree of speed to it.
A reverse suplex, if you will. Like, the spinner out-controlled the control bot.
We saw that happen to Abyss in week 3 against Jokester as well, so not as unusual as you might think here in the arena. However, a good little push to end the fight, and I'd say a good match all round there. That was very good performance from both bots, but I'd say Electromotivation has it. And a decision from the judges. A very close 7-5 decision in favour of Electromotivation, giving it a win in its last fight here in the round robin phase. And now our next match. We've talked about it since week 1. It's finally here. AJ is using the pole, and it's against Huo Wang, which, as shown right there, is one of the deadliest vertical spinners in this event.
Yes, the pole is definitely an interesting configuration. I think it's meant to be for anti-spinner, but I also think it's meant to be for a kung fu type.
Oh, almost at the arena! So
that could have been it.
I have actually spoke to Rob about the use of the pole, as we all have during our pre and post show interview stuff, and his entire plan with it is to ram it into the gaps in that egg beater and just pray that the physics favours him, which it is not doing so far.
No, it's so far that front wedge of AJ has been torn apart here, and Hu Wang is just ripping apart this
the pole is splintered across the arena.
Oh my goodness me! I don't know how many loops that was. Too many to count there.
We saw in that very first impact, AJ lost one of those 2 forks. So it's already down on the ground game sense. It's getting tossed around so badly here. But so is Huo. I think this week should be dedicated to our floor flipper with the amount it's trying to have a play in the fights.
As I mentioned earlier, like the floor flipper really wants to be a part of this competition. It is alive.
Oh, AJ hung up there. It backs away from the debris. 1 hit, 2 hit, and the battery again!
The 1-2 combo seals AJ's fate. That's a fire. That's a battery gone. Hu Wang with a very convincing win.
Oh, and unfortunate to see AJ go up in smoke a second time in this event. However, when your base play is quite as thin as AJ's is, and you're against an egg beater that powerful, if one wrong hit, it's going straight through, and it's going to hit all those lovely internals.
On to fight 3 of the night. We see the devastating Leviathan against the explosively powerful Stardust. Both robots, of course, different in record here, though. Right now, a fantastic flip here from Stardust to start the match off.
I think this is 2 robots that are the strongest in their field. Stardust definitely has the most powerful flipper, and Leviathan has the most powerful horizontal spinner. But both machines have one massive drawback. Leviathan simply isn't mobile enough due to the nature of its locomotion, and Stardust just has no defense. And when you're letting Leviathan spin up as much as it is, that is what happens!
Oh my word. Stardust really should not have let it spin up there. It should have stayed on Leviathan. I know it was trying to charge up its flipper, but this is what happens. You just cannot do that against Leviathan. Good pin there, of course. I think it's somewhat low enough now to not be affected by the blade all too much. But right now...
Stardust flipper hanging on by a thread.
Oh dear. I don't think it's just now a mace at this point, a flail.
Oh, and it's stuck on its own flipper. And Leviathan's leaving it.
Yeah, that's fair enough there. I mean, all it comes down to is that we said this so many times when it comes to Leviathan. Don't let him spin up.
Oh, getting one last. Oh, it freed it.
The flipper says no. the flipper is saying not today. We don't need the fight to continue. Fair enough, Arena. I'm not going to argue with you.
All day, our Arena has been trying to have an effect and end a fight. And would you look at that? It finally has.
Well, yeah, fair enough.
And it's time for our fourth fight in the Sapphire group. Huo Wang, that powerful egg beater we just saw cause Huo to go up in flames, against Jokester, another one of our egg beaters, but a lot smaller in diameter.
Yes, and Jokester, of course, really, I'd say notorious in this group for just how low those forks are. That's a fantastic pin so far against Huang, keeping up against the corner here. A shot from the weapon, but I would argue really that the like driving.
Can Huo move? Hang on.
Can it get out?
I think Huo's stuck. I think there might be something wedged underneath that front wheel, just lifting it off the ground just enough.
I think that might be debris from Jokester. There we go. That's it.
What a quick match here. Wow.
Fair enough. Good driving there from Jokester.
And the first match of this group where the Arena haven't done anything.
The penultimate match of the Sapphire group we see in the red square Howler and in the blue square Stardust. Stardust coming off of an explosive loss, but an explosive flip to start off the match against Howler there, putting it into
Howler,
the
are we okay? Oh, no, it's okay. It's back on its wheels. Never mind.
Howler, I mean, it drives almost like a boat, really. It needs to try and navigate in, but Stardust's front is so low and I think the more maneuverable out of the two.
Oh, it got under for a second there, but couldn't capitalize.
Oh,
That's a good bite on the flipper. It's going to go back in for another
crush.
That's actually a pretty good grab.
This is some really good stuff here from Howler now. Like, where was this earlier in the week? Whoa!
Stardust showing what that flipper can do, even when it's being bitten by Howler. Howler leaving it? We know Stardust can self-right. Why are you not attacking? Oh, there we go. It's attacking now.
I think it was just trying to like line itself up because it's just so difficult. I think seeing like it maneuver around. I've heard mentioning, of course, in the pits that turning is not great here for Howler.
Yes, it does look to drive a little bit slippy. I'm not sure if it's the issue with that wedge shape at the front, with those front wheels being quite exposed. It looks like when something goes up that wedge, they might just run straight into the front wheels.
Yes, but I have to say, really, Howler has been on top. There we go, this might change it!
That has changed it! And with one flip, as we've seen it done before, I think Stardust has won this match.
Oh my word. And really, when it comes down to it, that's all a flipper needs. One good flip, and it's curtains for you. Good victory there from Stardust. Commiserations to Howler. It did all right in this fight.
It was definitely on top to begin with, but with how tricky that thing appears to be to drive, it's only so long before it makes a mistake. And our last match of the Sapphire group in the round robin phase is AJ Allmanflinger, repaired after the battery fire, against Jokester, who just came off the quickest win of the group so far. Ooh, low forks on Jokester there.
It's up against AJ, which lost, well, spectacularly, really, in its previous match. But can Jokester self-right?
We've seen it do... There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
We've seen it do so before. It just seems to have quite a lot of problems with doing so. Yeah. And, ooh, good flip there from AJ, destabilizing it again. Can it capitalize before Jokester can self-right? No, because our arena is being mean again.
It can't stop itself. It really needs to be a part of this episode today. Goodness me.
I have to say, I am almost impressed with how much the arena has been harassing everyone today. Oh, what happened there?
And that's it! A good drive there from AJ. Jokester really shouldn't have been there. Fantastic flip.
It looked like Jokester got the pin, but AJ just managed to spin out of it, get that little lip underneath the side of Jokester, one flip, and you're out the arena. A brilliant move there from AJ. And welcome back to the studio. We've just seen the Sapphire Group's final set of fights, and now we're going to give our thoughts on them. Now, the first fight was a fairly slow and drawn-out match between Abyss and Electromotivation. This wasn't the most entertaining fight, but it was certainly a pretty good win for Electromotivation, all things considered. It's the first time we've seen this other wedge setup, and it seems somewhat effective. Abyss struggled to get a lift in, and Electromotivation got the occasional good hit in with that egg beater spinner. A slow match, but not a bad one.
Abyss has been having a tough time of it recently. It had made itself a nice berth at the top of the standings with 3 wins in a row early on, but these recurring losses may see it knocked out of first place. It'll get the chance to redeem itself going forward, and hopefully for its sake it will.
Fight 2 of the group saw AJ Allmanflinger taking on Hui Wang, and the first thing to discuss would be the much anticipated poll. I said in the pre-show that this was a risky decision, but it didn't do all too bad for its purpose. The loss here wasn't caused by the pole, rather a shot to the base plate and subsequently the battery.
Yes, and speaking on that base plate, it's quite a common weakness for a lot of robots, and it's especially shown here with AJ. Spinners have just treated that bottom plate as a hot knife through butter. Has this locked AJ out of the top 6? Well, hopefully, if AJ can pick it up.
Our third fight saw Stardust suffer a destructive loss at the hands of Leviathan. Well, it's just like we said. If you don't get Leviathan stopped, the damage can rack up very quickly. And Leviathan took out Stardust's flipper and eventually left the bot immobile. This fight gave Leviathan a lot of points, and has likely made it keep that all-important 6th place.
Yeah, we've seen that the weapon on Stardust is very powerful, if somewhat unpredictable, but in this fight, we've also seen that the lack of defense can really harm it, and there's a risk that that'll continue to be the case as we progress further.
Taking a look at Fight 4 here with Jokester and Hui Wang, and there wasn't really much of a fight to see. These two bots have had quite a presence so far in the tournament, but we essentially went from the start of the fight to Hui Wang getting beached in the arena. Smart play for Jokester to solidify a position in the next round and take an easy win, but there certainly wasn't much hardship in the way of getting there.
Well, when points are a factor and every win counts, it's completely understandable as to why he had to leave him. But this just further outlines and goes to show just how important it is to have ground clearance or an ability to just get off from obstructions and beaching points. As we've seen many times before with robots like Akira, it can be devastating it can be great to have the ground game, but it can be devastating and pretty much knock you out entirely if you just get stuck on just a slight incline. It's very easy and happens a lot here in Foxii Fighters.
Fight 5 saw the end of Howler's time here at Foxii Fighters. Now, while we've all said countless times how pretty Howler is, looks don't win fights. Howler simply doesn't have the wedge, the durability, or the weapon potency to win many fights here. I don't really know what more I can say than that. I do hope to see it will come back next season with improvements.
Yeah, if we look back at Howler's campaign, we might single out its match against AJ Allmanflinger as a highlight, although Rob might not. But aside from that, Howler won't take many positives from the season. What needs to happen for Howler to come back stronger next season? I'm not sure. I mean, Foxii listed its weaknesses, but there have been valuable moments to learn from, and next time, I'd love to see it keep its head while all around it lose theirs.
And for the last fight of the group, we saw Jokester back in the arena taking on AJ Allmanflinger. Strategically, this was all about getting under one another, which made me go for the wedge. After a bit of back and forth, a bit of luck came in and AJ was able to score the Uta. I have to say, as a driver, this was about as stressful as it gets. Jokester put up a really solid defense, but with the wedge in play compared to the smaller forks, it came down to getting the right position and going for that big flip.
Yes, this fight, I think, perfectly outlines the battle here, really, between the driving ability of robots versus the general practicality of ground game. AJ in this match chose a solid, strong wedge, which is perfect and is utilized best by a good driver who knows to exploit the weaknesses and faults of driving with their opponent. As whereas Jokester having just low down forks, which we've seen many times before to be just as effective and consistently effective regardless. However, they catch a lot of low points within the arena, and really in this match, it seems that driving ability won it for them. With the Sapphire group over, let's move on to Topaz, shall we?
And our first match of the Topaz group sees two vertical spinners in Quake and Xiao Shilong meet. Quake, not always a vertical spinner, but opting for its disc here. I'm assuming because it knows how damaging... Oh, wow!
Oh! Ping! 5, 6, 7!
And
7 rebounds
stable again! Now we have seen... Oh, wow! Look at the design of the pontoons on Xiao there, getting either side of Quake's little front point. And just pushing it around.
I think that real push there just further accentuates I think, the flawed front plow design of Quake, since, like, we're not really seeing much feeding up, really, on this wedge.
No, we're not. And we've mentioned a few times as the weeks have gone on, the trouble when spinners hit heavier parts. Xiao just doesn't seem to have that. Like, it's hitting that front wedge of Quake and still getting really good bite.
Yeah, I think it's a very stable vertical spinner. I think, well, when it's on its wheels, it performs very well.
Yes, I have to agree there. At the start of this event, Xiao is the previous champion, and I think we've seen why here. This is a new version of it, and I think, whoa! Quake goes pinball.
Cameraman, try and keep track of it. It goes at light speed. Oh, Xiao having a little hop there, a little excitement, and we're starting to see, I think, the damage come through now. Quake is not looking as maneuverable, as powerful in its drive as it did before. That wedge looking very cracked, pounded away.
Under the hammer. Oh, a hammer shot to the wheel, that can't help.
Yeah, the hammer now getting in to play here instead of the flipper.
Flippers are bored, so the hammers are taking over. However, a little while ago, I think we saw one of Quake's front wheels actually sitting by the arena flipper, so I think it has taken a bit of damage.
Yes, and I think I don't know if I could really class it as being more, like, really maneuverable now.
No, it doesn't appear to be. There's that wheel just behind Xiao. There's our count. Xiao knows it's won this. It's over in the corner, spinning in celebration.
Yeah. Just that front wedge. There were many times in that match where I think Quake got in, like, ready to get the hit, but the positioning of the vert, the shape of the wedge, it doesn't mix. It doesn't work.
No, when you've got Xiao's design that can just get either side of that front lip, it just leads it up right into Xiao's spinner and just doesn't allow Quake to make contact at all. I think the only thing Quake's spinner hit in this fight was the arena floor.
On to the second fight of the Topaz group, we see Lemon near the top of the group against Two-Headed Death Penguin, a robot that's sitting at the bottom and close to elimination.
And bits of the wings falling off already here in the arena. Oh, and our floor flipper, of course, again.
Tipping over Lemon. Can Lemon self-right? It is stuck on its side. And
Two-Headed, how did you get there?
Two-Headed also getting harassed by the wing is breaking off.
However, Lemon's being counted out here because it still hasn't got off its side.
And so is
Oh,
Two-Headed.
and it breaks free! Lemon breaks free with 1 second left. Will Two-Headed do the same? Yes, it will!
This has been an interesting fight so far, as both robots are almost immobilizing themselves.
It's a very interesting start here to the match. Two-Headed somehow ending up on the drums after the flipper threw Lemon onto its side. Lemon pinball! Lemon. There it goes.
Pinball wizard of that is Lemon.
Getting another shot off at the front there, tossing Two-Headed away. And there's one taking off the other wing. Oh, Two-headed back on
now.
its wheels, but looking
two-headed.
wounded, definitely.
It loses a lot of stability when those wings go, as you've seen so in many previous fights. So those wings are just too fragile, being tossed away there.
I mean, it is such a fun machine to watch fight, but it is so unfortunate when we see it just get tossed around like this. It just has no hope of really winning against anything with any competence.
Deflect there from Lemon. I think Lemon is just tearing into it piece by piece. Two-headed penguin up on its back now.
You can see there for a moment, Lemon wasn't spinning up to full speed. Do you think it's just doing that to try and get a little bit less of the unpredictableness when it hits things?
Maybe. I mean, it is looking a bit shaky, but I think it's doing okay so far.
Oh, good shot to the back plate there. It's looking very damaged on two-headed. I think another shot will probably rip that off.
Another shot there.
Two-headed
I think that
wounded.
that left wheel is not looking stable. Oh, Lemon catching the arena, I think.
Of course, it's the arena. Once again, Lemon tossing it towards the drums. Two-headed, I think it's just avoiding a count out, but any more damage to that free-wheel, and it's going to be over for Lemon. A good hit there. Two-headed losing a piece out of its base plate. Not what you want. Near the Uta zone, and
oh, he's gone!
an Uta!
No!
An Uta for a shell! I think that's the last thing we expected to see here this week.
Yeah, I mean, good showing for two-headed to survive that long, but that was fantastic.
And now our third match sees two robots very different in design. An incredibly defensive machine in Wave Runner against an incredibly offensive machine in Super Esports. I'm interested to see how this one plays out. The last time we saw this in Tough as Nails and Soundwave earlier this week, Tough as Nails came out on top. Will it be the same result here?
There's the flipper again! Tossing Super Esports up in the air, and Super Esports grinding away at the pontoons of Wave Runner, or striking the arena spike.
Yeah, deflecting off the spike there and getting a bit of a top attack almost on Wave Runner. Quite interesting to see.
Wave Runner lifting up Super Esports, managed to get it underneath and over, but those drums also picking up Wave Runner and putting it on top of the machine.
Yes, esports is very reliant on using those drums almost as little lifters to pick you up and then play tennis with you between the two sets, just slowly chipping away at that machine. There goes a very important looking axle from the front of Wave Runner, and the machine is starting to look hurt now.
It's looking more like a square now. That front wedge, those pontoons have been sheared off, really.
That's a side panel, that's a body section. There's 3 wheels!
Wow, I think this just goes to show really how, where the weight is in Wave Runner, because it's definitely not at the sides.
No, it's all in that front wedge. There goes everything!
Oh wow, oh, it's complete destruction. There's nothing left of Wave Runner.
We didn't even go for a count out here. Super Esports, so devastating. We had to end this match as almost a safety hazard in the arena.
I think at the end it became a carpet. A fight between the bottom 2 machines, Two-Headed Death Penguin and Barracuda. Let's see which one out of these two comes out on top.
Both machines taking a couple of seconds to properly get started there. It's almost like they didn't realise our lights had changed and they were ready to go. However, getting into the fight now, Barracuda's got a couple of shots on the front. However, one bad deflection and it can be all over for it.
Oh, and there goes one wing there onto the Death Penguin. Like, as we said earlier today, those wings are fragile.
Oh, and there's our deflection. And that's it. Two-Headed knows it's won. It's not touching that.
A solid victory there, just tipping it over.
Unfortunately, in Barracuda's case, that weapon just doesn't have enough energy to get the speed back in it once it's tossed over. And if you saw there just before our camera footage ended, the floor flipper had to get one more cheeky flip in on our winner. And our 5th match in the Topaz group sees 2 quite similar machines. defensive bricks in Demon Spirit and Wave Runner, and Demon Spirit getting the better of that first exchange there, getting a nice toss to begin the match.
Demon Spirit giving a nice little flip there, and Wave Runner tossing it near towards the corner. Both of these robots, of course, very similar in concept, very similar in design, and what they are potentially trying to do here in the competition.
Yes, they're designed to be bulky, they're designed to take those spinner hits, and then dish out that little bit of weapon power to just pop your opponent onto the spikes, onto the shelf, onto the Uta zone. And we've seen it work in the past here, but when they're against each other like this, it could be a very different fight.
Yeah, so right now I think Wave Runner's now looking a bit on top from that good toss there earlier. Oh,
Demon onto the shelf. Lovely to see that. And it get down. Yes, it can.
Yes, it can. Fantastic. Both these robots very highly maneuverable and highly controlling. I think we've seen either robot come out on top here, but I think Wave Runner's got the edge so far. Oh, and revenge here!
It does seem overall that Wave Runner is that little bit less low to the ground than Demon Spirit, but it has also got off the shelf here, and our match can resume.
Both bots are still doing their best, I think, just to try and get the edge over the two. Clearly, the upper raised platform isn't going to be enough to knock either of these machines out. They're going to need to try and pin a robot or get an Uta or just continue looking good for the judges, really.
And I'd say they're both doing that so far. We've seen some very good lifts from both sides here. This has been a very, very tactical match between these two bots. They're spending so much of this fight positioning because they know the easiest way for them to win is to get that Uta flip or Uta lift. And they both want it. We've seen them test out the shelf. It hasn't worked for either. They're going for that out of the arena shot.
Yeah, so right now, really, I don't know if we're going to get a clean knockout here between the two, but I think all they need to do is look good for the cards.
We might. No, Wave Runner escapes. Nearly back on the shelf again. Demon Spirit. Oh, up on the wedge now.
And a nice little lift there.
The wedge battle between these two is so even. They seem both to be able to get under each other almost effortlessly. However, Demon determined for that Uta, but it just slips away from it.
I think Demon Spirit now in that final minute, has been calling up, getting that edge there. Wave Runner needs something a bit more explosive near the end to kind of and pull ahead. Neither robot really has done much damage to one another, but it's all going to come down to who's the more controlling.
Oh, good flip.
And I think
that's our match. Demon Spirit definitely taking over the control towards the end of this fight. Wave Runner leading, I'd say, the first minute, and that second minute being very close. I think this is going to be a very tough one for our judges. However, our judges have decided that Demon Spirit had enough control and enough aggression to win that match, giving it a 8-4 decision. A very good performance from both bots here, but of course, Demon Spirit just getting the better.
And on to the last battle of this week and this episode. We have Lemon versus Baratuda.
Now, this is going to be a very interesting match between two very different horizontals, as I don't think Baratuda is that at risk of flipping over, so we could see it have a few opportunities to get some good attacks in here.
Yes, and I'm interested to see how well Baratuda will do against Lemon, especially with that angle.
Oh, wow! Did we see something fly off Lemon there? It looked like something did.
I'm not sure. It was explosive. Oh, there's a piece that's come off Lemon.
That must be what we saw fly off then, because Lemon... Oh, Lemon missing that directional light. Baratuda must have hit that early on in the match.
Yeah, because I can't see that anymore, and Lemon doesn't know where it's going, and that just
over by the drums as well. I think that's the base plate of Lemon. Baratuda getting some good hits early in this match.
This is surprising. We've seen Lemon, seeing Lemon on the back foot here, really. I mean, we haven't really seen... Oh, it's tipping over, yeah.
Where was this Baratuda in the earlier weeks? It's good to see it, but I wish we could have got it a bit sooner.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite surprised so far. I mean, we're seeing Baratuda manage to tank the hits here of Lemon here. Very, very interesting.
That shell looking quite damaged. We saw Terabyte de-shelled earlier. Are we going to see the same here? Or will the physics of that angled spinner just be too mean to Baratuda and toss it over before it gets a chance? Arena wants to toss it over. Baratuda doesn't want to go over and lands upright. Oh, the shell!
Oh, and the shell! Oh!
Baratuda!
Over as well.
Oh no!
Can either robot get back up?
Both of them are being counted out. We know Baratuda can't self-right. Can Lemon find a way to spin itself or move itself out of its own corpse almost?
No, that's it.
And a very interesting double knockout to end off our round robin phase. And of course, like all other double knockouts that we've had in this event, it will go to our judges. Baratuda showing a lot of potential in this fight. Lemon still getting some good hits back, so it's probably going to be quite close. And it looks like our judges have agreed with that, and it is very close. And on a 7-5, Baratuda is decided the winner, giving it its second win here in the round robin phase.
And while the arena sweepers clear out the wreckage for one last time in the round robin phase, we'll take a look back at those Topaz Group fights and reminisce. Xiao Shalong's last fight of the round robin phase was a strong one to close with. Its opponent Quake chose the vertical spinner, but had very little luck in landing hits. Xiao, meanwhile, knew just where to strike, hit those wheels, and hit Quake where it hurts most.
This fight, to me, showed how different wedge designs can help with weapon engagement. While Quake's wedge pushed Xiao away from its spinner most of the time, Xiao's pontoons guide Quake into its, allowing for Xiao to get most of the hits, and this was shown here. Xiao left the fight with very little damage, and Quake left with a lot.
On to the second fight, where we saw Lemon face up against Two-Headed, and goodness me, that was a fun fight. While Two-Headed Death Penguin put up a brave battle against the mighty force that is Lemon, Lemon managed to do the impossible and managed to throw Two-Headed Death Penguin completely out of the arena. Something that's actually managed to happen before off-screen in a previous Foxii Fighters competition, so it's a good swan song to that event there.
And looking again towards our loser of this fight, it's not looking all too well for Two-Headed Death Penguin. Their chances of moving on are about as dire as can be, and it's looking risky with Baratuda up next, given its luck in the past, and even here with horizontal spinners.
Next, the robot sitting at the top of the group, Wave Runner, met a robot which has been charging up the order, Super Esports, and Wave Runner opted for its pontoons, which Super Esports found very tasty. It snacked on the pontoons and then feasted on the rest of Wave Runner.
This went pretty much exactly as I wanted it to. I did get beached at one point, but thankfully Sky didn't notice in time and hit me down off the wall spikes. I'm very happy with how Super Esports handled, and it's good to see the bot finally packing the punch I know it can.
On to fight 4 of the Topaz group, where we saw Lemon face up against Baratuda. This one was a lot more trickier than expected, and I didn't quite expect to see Baratuda do so well, but then again I did have my doubts when going into the match, and in doing so we saw an explosive double knockout between these two machines. Lemon finally, of course, being de-shelled, which, out of all the robots to do it, I didn't expect it to be Baratuda.
Well, in spite of that, the one conclusion out of this fight for me is that Baratuda, as it stands, just isn't cutting it. Maybe what it needs is a self-righting mechanism, or Shrimek for short. With how often it's been tipped over, you'd have to imagine it would be a no-brainer for Jay to implement this somewhere.
Yes, and our penultimate fight of not only the Topaz group but also the round robin phase was Wave Runner fighting Demon Spirit, and a great fight it was. Very close, as is often the case between robots with such similar designs and fairly equal wedging ability, but ultimately it was Demon Spirit winning this one.
This has to have been one of the most enjoyable fights to watch throughout the entire event so far. Seeing these two control bots go all out for 3 minutes was brilliant. Well done to both drivers. That was incredible.
And lastly, to our final fight of the night, Baratuda versus Two-Headed Death Penguin. Once again, as Rob brought up beforehand, Baratuda's lack of self-righting mechanism caused it to lose once more. Flipped over in the first minute after deflecting off of Two-Headed's wedge. Considering the placement of these two robots, this might be the last time we see these these guys in the competition, so this could just be a fight for bragging rights. But at least we know now that out of the two, Two-Headed's better.
Well, as
don't
we
think
come
anybody
to
was
a
doubting
close
it,
for the
Neola
round robin
taking
stage
home
of
first
Foxii
place
Fighters,
with
it's time for one
65
last look
points
at the
and a
group
6-1
records, kicking it
record.
off with the Ruby
Although
group.
not
I don't think anybody was doubting it. Neola taking home first place with 65 points and a 6-1 record. Although not far behind it is Counterpoint in second place, only 62 points, 3 points behind, another 6-1 record. Terabyte stands at third in the group standings with 58 points and a 5-2 record. Moving on to fourth is Game Over with 49 points and a 3-4 record. Fifth place has Cerberus with 41 points and another 3-4 record. And edging out into the next round is Silly Goose with 38 points and a 2-5 record. And this is where we say goodbye officially to 7th and 8th, Avalanche. 35 points and a 3-4 record, not enough to make it through. And Burnout, well, nobody was expecting him to get through. 8th place, 23 points and a 0-7 record, going completely winless.
On to the final Emerald Group standings for Week 5, and what an interesting turnout it is. At first place, only separating it from second place of 1 point, we have Serpent at 66 points and a 5-2 record. Mundo, with the same win-loss record as well, is coming in behind at 65 points. In third place, a solid position for Truncator with 53 points, and of course, another 5-2 record. From fourth place, dropping down from its previous high positions, we have Soundwave at 44 points and a 3-4 record. At number 5, managing to stay in despite its rocky time in the competition, we have Skynet with 40 points and a 2-5 record. Just about scraping through as well, we have Gosling still toughing it out on 39 points and a 2-5 record. However, the two robots we have to see leaving us in 7th place first, Tough as Nails with a 34 points and 3-4 record, and the unlucky Akira with 32 points and another 3-4 record.
And now we move on to our last look at the Sapphire Group records. And somehow, defying all odds in first place is Stardust, with 59 points and a 4-3 record. Huo Wang just missed out on that top spot, but gets into second place with 57 points and a 5-2 record. Abyss, despite leading the table for 3 weeks, has dropped down into third, 1 point behind Huo on 56 points and a 4-3 record. Jokester rises up to fourth with 50 points and a 4-3 record. And Electromotivation, after falling down from first place in the group, has ended up in fifth with 49 points and another 4-3 record. Now, 6th and 7th place. This is as close as it could be. AJ Allmanflinger and Leviathan both sit at 41 points and a 3-4 record. However, advancing to the next round will be AJ Allmanflinger, as if you remember all the way back to week 1, when these two fought in a 1v1, AJ was the winner, meaning Leviathan is eliminated from the competition. And of course, sitting down there at the bottom of the group in 8th is Howler with 25 points and a lackluster 1-6 record.
Last but not least, the Topaz Group standings at the end of the round robin phase, and leading the way with 67 points and a record of 5 wins and 2 losses. It's the citrusy one, it's Lemon. And in second place, a robot that I said a little earlier had climbed its way up the standings, now sitting on 62 points, and the same record as Lemon, 5 wins, 2 losses, is Super Esports. In third place, the once leader of the Topaz Group, Wave Runner, with 59 points, 4 wins and 3 losses. On the same record, but 7 points back in fourth, we see Demon Spirit, and on the same record again, but on 49 points, is Xiaoxilong in 5th. And that last position in terms of advancing to the next stage, perhaps a surprise? 36 points, making it by 1 point. It's Two-Headed Death Penguin, which means that our bottom two, and therefore the 2 robots that will not move out of the Topaz group, on 2 wins and 5 losses each. Quake in 7th with 35 points, and in 8th place, helped along a little bit, Byte's victory against Lemon this week, but still in 8th, Baratuda on 25 points.
And that concludes the round robin phase of Foxii Fighters. And I don't know about you, but I've really enjoyed these 5 weeks. But now we have to say goodbye to those bottom 8, and our top 24 will move onwards to the group brackets. But we'll explain those next week. On behalf of myself and my co-hosts, I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and good night.